Your paycheck has one job, but most people accidentally give it 10. The moment your salary lands in your bank account, a silent competition begins. Your credit card wants a piece. Your mortgage wants a piece. Your subscriptions, your investments, your savings, your vacation fund, your car payment. Everyone wants your money first. And here's the problem. Most people don't lose financially because they earn too little. They lose because they spend their paycheck in the wrong order. Imagine two people making exactly the same salary. They earn the same amount, they live in the same city, they even receive the same annual raises. Fast forward 20 years, one has a 7-figure investment portfolio, the other is still worried about bills. The difference wasn't how much they earned, it was the order in which every paycheck was used. Because money is surprisingly obedient. Give it the right instruction first, and it quietly builds wealth. Give it the wrong instruction, and it quietly disappears. Today, we're going to build what might be the most valuable financial system you'll ever learn. Not another budget, not another savings challenge, a simple order of operations. One decision tree that answers the question almost everyone asks after payday. What should I do with my money first? Because if you get the order wrong, even a 6-figure income can struggle to create wealth. But if you get it right, every paycheck starts working harder than the last.
Most people believe building wealth starts with investing. Open an app, buy an index fund, watch it grow. It sounds logical, but imagine trying to build a house. Would you install the roof before pouring the foundation? Of course not. The roof matters, but not first. Money works the same way. Every financial decision supports the one that comes after it. Skip the foundation, and everything above it becomes fragile. That's why the wealthiest households rarely think about individual financial products. They think in systems. They know exactly where every new dollar goes before it even arrives, and that's where our order begins. Step 1 isn't investing. It's survival. Before chasing returns, your first priority is making sure tomorrow's emergency doesn't become tomorrow's debt. That's why the first destination for your paycheck should be a small emergency cushion. Not enough to retire, not enough to stop working, just enough to stop life's surprises from landing on a credit card, a flat tire, a broken furnace, an unexpected medical bill. These aren't rare events, they're predictable interruptions. Without cash available, small emergencies often become expensive debt, and expensive debt quietly destroys future wealth. Think of an emergency fund as financial shock absorbers. You hope they never get tested, but when they do, you'll be grateful they're there. Even a modest emergency fund can interrupt the cycle of borrowing for unexpected expenses, and that's far more valuable than most people realize. Because the goal isn't earning more money, it's preventing unnecessary financial setbacks.
Once you've built that foundation, most people assume the next step is investing. Not yet. Because there's one opportunity that's almost impossible to beat. Free money. If your employer offers a retirement match, this comes next. Imagine someone walking into your office every payday and saying, "If you save $1, I'll add another." Almost nobody would refuse. Yet millions of workers never contribute enough to receive their full employer match. They're turning down part of their compensation. Not because it's complicated, but because they never learned the order. That employer contribution doesn't depend on predicting the stock markets. It doesn't require perfect timing. It's simply part of your paycheck waiting to be claimed. And leaving it behind can be one of the most expensive financial decisions you'll never notice. But even after you've claimed every dollar your employer is willing to contribute, your paycheck still has another decision to make, one that's quietly costing millions of people thousands of dollars every year. Because before your investments can truly grow, there's one invisible leak that has to be repaired first. And that's where the real math begins. Now comes the step that feels the least exciting, but quietly changes everything. Eliminate high-interest debt. This is where many people accidentally sabotage their own wealth. Picture 2 buckets. In one bucket, your investments are slowly filling with water. In the other, your credit card debt has a hole in the bottom, leaking money every single day. You keep pouring more into the investment bucket, but the leak never stops. That's exactly what happens when someone invests aggressively while carrying expensive credit card debt. It feels productive. You can watch your portfolio grow, check your app, celebrate green numbers. But somewhere in the background, interest keeps working against you. And unlike the stock markets, that interest doesn't take a day off. It doesn't care if markets are up. It doesn't care if your investments had a great month. It keeps growing, quietly, relentlessly. That's why paying off high-interest debt is one of the few financial decisions that offer something incredibly rare: certainty. Investing offers the possibility of future returns. Paying off expensive debt removes a guaranteed cost. Those are very different things. This is also where psychology begins to interfere. Our brains naturally reward visible progress. An investment account going from $10,000 to $11,000 feels exciting. A credit card balance falling from $10,000 to $9,000 feels like nothing happened. But your net worth doesn't care which direction the number moved. It only cares that the gap between what you own and what you owe became larger. Real wealth isn't about collecting accounts, it's about removing friction. Because every dollar that isn't paying interest can eventually begin earning interest instead. And that's when your paycheck starts changing jobs. Instead of repairing yesterday's mistakes, it starts building tomorrow's wealth. Only now, after your emergency cushion is in place, your employer match is secured, and high-interest debt is under control, does investing become your primary mission. This is where most people think the story begins. In reality, it begins here because you've already built the foundation. Think of investing like planting a tree. The sooner you plant it, the more time it has to grow. But planting a tree on unstable ground won't help much. Strong roots matter first. Consistency matters more than perfection. You don't need to predict the next winning stock. You don't need to watch financial news every morning. You don't need to panic every time markets fall. You simply need to make investing automatic. Every paycheck, every month, every year. Because wealth is usually built through repetition, not brilliance. Most fortunes weren't created by making one extraordinary investment. They were built by making thousands of ordinary decisions over and over again. That's why automation is so powerful. The less often you ask yourself, should I invest this month, the more likely you are to stay consistent. Successful investors don't rely on motivation, they rely on systems, and systems remove emotion from the equation. But here's where many people make one final mistake. They think the journey ends once they're investing. Actually, that's when the next chapter begins, because your paycheck eventually has one final assignment, one that separates financial stability from genuine financial freedom. And it's probably the most overlooked step of all. Here's where the conversation usually changes. Because once someone has an emergency fund, has eliminated high-interest debt, and invests consistently, they start asking a different question. Now what? The answer isn't to spend more. It's to buy something most people never notice: freedom. Think about the wealthiest people you know. Not the ones who look rich, the ones who actually have options. They can leave a stressful job, take a year off, help their children, care for aging parents, retire when they choose. Those options weren't purchased in a single day. They were purchased one paycheck at a time. Every dollar they didn't waste on unnecessary interest, every dollar they invested consistently, every dollar they allowed to compound was quietly buying them another piece of freedom. That's why wealth isn't really measured by the size of your paycheck. It's measured by how many future paychecks you no longer depend on. And that's where your order of operations reaches its final step. Once your financial foundation is strong, once you're investing consistently, begin directing additional money toward increasing your freedom. That might mean paying down a mortgage faster, building a taxable investment portfolio, saving for a child's education, or creating enough passive income that work becomes a choice instead of a necessity. The destination is different for everyone, but the principle is always the same. Every new dollar should have one clear mission: increase future freedom, not future expenses. Because every raise creates a temptation: a bigger car, a larger house, more subscriptions, a more expensive lifestyle. Psychologists call this lifestyle inflation. As income rises, spending quietly rises with it, And before long, someone earning twice as much doesn't actually feel any wealthier. Their paycheck grew, their obligations grew faster. That's why many high-income households still feel financially trapped, not because they earn too little, but because every extra dollar was assigned to a new expense instead of a new asset. The wealthy often do the opposite. Before upgrading their lifestyle, they upgrade their balance sheet. They allow their assets to grow first, their spending follows later. It's a simple habit, but over decades, it creates an enormous difference. Because wealth isn't what you spend, it's what you keep. It's what continues working while you're asleep. It's what gives you choices years from now.
So, the next time your paycheck arrives, don't ask, what do I want to buy? Ask, what job should this dollar do first? Because every paycheck is a team of tiny employees. If you send them in different directions, they accomplish very little. But if every dollar works in the right order, something remarkable begins to happen. Financial stress starts to shrink, confidence starts to grow, and one ordinary payday becomes the foundation for extraordinary wealth. The goal has never been to earn the biggest paycheck. The goal is to make every paycheck smarter than the last. Because building wealth isn't about finding the perfect investment. It's about creating a system that works every single payday. And once that system is in place, your paycheck stops controlling your life. Your life starts controlling your paycheck. If this changed the way you think about money, subscribe to The Wealth Logic.